So today we're going to be working on the Tundra, and we're going to kind of tackle some of those things that this truck has that I'm not a big fan of, that being a lot of the chrome trim pieces on the truck. If you've been following the channel, you know that we already took care of the grille surround that goes on the front of the truck, but now we're going to move on to getting rid of the chrome door handles. So with that, YOTAVERSE was kind enough to send me out a set of their black adhesive door covers. These are going to make this process go a lot smoother and a lot quicker. So that way we don't have to disassemble the door and try to take off those pieces, sand them down, paint them whatever color we want. This is going to allow us to kind of just slap these guys right over the top. As you can see, there's some adhesive on the backing of these, which will allow us to just remove this and simply press it onto the door handle. But we're not going to stop there. I'm not too big of a fan of the flat black that these come in. I would much rather have these kind of paint matched to blend into the door a lot better. So I stopped by my local auto parts store and they were able to get me 2 cans of paint. We have the magnetic gray paint that comes in the factory color. And we're going to do kind of a 2-step process, and we're going to do a clear coat over the top rather than just buying a can that has the clear coat already mixed into it. So we're going to start with our paint and then finish off with our clear. Now hopefully doing this 2-step process will allow it to be a lot more glossy and blend a lot better into the door so that we don't just have kind of this contrasting black covers. So because these already have a black finish on them and they're plastic, they're super smooth. So before we can paint the surface, we're going to need to sand it down, get it nice and rough, and then we're going to clean it off with some alcohol so that when we go to put our primer on, it's going to coat evenly and it's not going to kind of flake off later on because plastic kind of stretches and expands with heat. So we're just going to make some nice, gentle, smooth strokes so we can kind of just barely rough it up. Getting in this little hole where the key is a little bit more challenging. So we've got these things all kind of roughed up, and now I'm going to hit it with some alcohol and just clean them up so there's no dust or debris on top of them, and then we can switch over to start using our primer. Now that they're all cleaned off, now we can switch over to our primer, and we're just going to want to do some nice even coats with this over all the surface area so we coat it nice and evenly. And now we're going to let that coat dry before we reapply a second one. Test, test, test. So now I did three coats of the primer and they look great. Super smooth. I am kind of fighting some wind, so the kind of spray is going everywhere, but hopefully it looks good. So now we're going to move on to our base coat. This is going to be the magnetic gray paint. I'm going to do about 2 to 3 coats of this and see how kind of thick it applies. At this point, I'm going to make sure that we do some nice overlapping and make sure we hit all the spots evenly so that it looks good when we go to apply that clear coat. So now we have our covers completely painted in the magnetic gray. I ended up doing about 4 coats just because there were some areas that didn't quite get enough of the spray. But now that this is all dried and it's looking good, we're going to transition over to using our clear coat. Again, I'm going to use about 2 to 3 coats of this clear coat. And I actually have to activate the hardener by kind of putting this cap on here and basically smashing it into the can. Shake that up, get that all blended nice and well, and start applying our coats. Now, from my understanding, we don't actually want it to fully dry between coats so that we're not just putting basically 3 layers of clear coat. We're kind of mixing them all together for the most part. Hopefully this works out. This is my first time actually using a 2-stage paint process. I've typically just done the single stage. So it's been a few days. I've had to let the paint cure on those door handles because the clear coat was still pretty soft, just because it wasn't super warm when I did paint them. But now we're going to move on to the truck, and we're going to go ahead and prep all these door handle surfaces with just some like wax and grease remover, just to make sure we get all the dirt or any sort of like detailing product that's over the top of them. So now these door handles did come with this like super small 3M adhesive tape. This stuff kind of takes a little while to get off, so it's probably a good idea to do this before you clean the surface and then put them on afterwards. So now I've got all that kind of adhesive trim tape that was over the top of them. Surface has been prepped, so this thing is all ready to go on. Hopefully this kind of matches super well, but we're just gonna go ahead and slap it on there, try to be even. And because it's kind of warm out, I want to make sure that these handles kind of stay on. So I'm just going to hold it on here for about 30 seconds to a minute and make sure that adhesive like fully stays on the surface. So I finished putting on the door covers on the Tundra, and I'm really happy with how these turned out. If you kind of just glance at the truck, okay, well the lighting isn't really helping me here, but if you kind of just glance at the truck, you would not notice that these were door covers, which is awesome because that's kind of the look I was going for. The paint match turned out absolutely perfect. It has the right, amount of sparkle in there, and if you go low, the right amount of like depth in the color. The only problem I had was because I was kind of painting in a windy spot, there was some dust kind of on here on some of them. But other than that, I mean, the truck's not going to be perfect because I off-road it. As you can tell, driving in the snow, I've got a lot of white specks from the rocks that get kicked up. But overall, I'm super happy with how these went on and how these cover. The adhesive seems to be holding up like pretty well. I just hope that these kind of are able to stay on for a few years and not really fall off. But that's pretty much going to be it for the video. Huge thank you to YOTAVERSE for sending me these, as well as a couple other little things, which I will show you guys in another video. But that's going to be it. Thank you all for watching. I will see you all on the next one.